Funded Today Nation, welcome back to the Funded Today podcast. Today, we are expanding on our popular Life After Crowdfunding series with another great episode. This one focuses on e-commerce strategy, especially for bootstrap startups. And for that purpose, we're interviewing an expert growth strategist named John Coyle, who's going to explain how to identify your competitive advantages, how to capitalize upon them to grow your brand, and how to strategize successfully through the 3 phases of bootstrapped e-commerce. Let's dive right in.
The Funded Today podcast is brought to you by fundedtoday.com. Funded Today is a premier marketing and video agency. From startups to crowdfunding to Amazon and beyond, Funded Today has helped their clients generate hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. If you'd like help launching or growing your business, visit www.fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.
Welcome back to Get Funded Today, the Funded Today podcast. I am Zach Smith.
And I'm Thomas Alvord.
And last time we talked about prototyping, manufacturing, and mass distribution of your product with special guest Gaston Liang. You're not going to want to miss that one. It was jam-packed with information that's going to help take that idea from inside your head on a napkin to the world at large. Really, I don't think there's anybody better in the world when it comes to that sort of thing. And that was a really fun episode to record. I learned a lot myself too. So take a look at that. Set aside a couple hours. It really was pretty long. And take out your notebook. Get ready to be mind blown. I think it's going to help you. Now, finally, before we begin today's episode, I wanted to once again remind you about just a couple free resources we've been creating for you. Are you unsure if your campaign media is as effective as it could be? Check out our Ultimate Crowdfunding Page Design Analyzer. It's going to overview all the basic principles of creating persuasive campaign media as it helps you to evaluate your video and your page. Are you worried about missing anything important as you prepare for the launch day? If so, then our thorough Ultimate Crowdfunding pre-launch checklist is going to list point by point what you can do to help minimize those regrets. And finally, are you craving a crash course about running a successful campaign from conceptualization to fulfillment and beyond? If so, then our powerful Ultimate Crowdfunding Success Guide is going to synthesize all of that wisdom about everything we've learned raising hundreds of millions of dollars into a single comprehensive reference handbook. You can download any and all of those resources free now from our website or check out the show notes, fundedtoday.com/podcast. Finally, one more plug for the book. It is coming. We are on track to have it finished in final manuscript form by the end of this year. You're not going to want to miss it. If you're interested in the book, let us know. Get on that pre-launch list. We'd love to have you. I think it's going to be a great book. Thomas and I are really excited about it. And like we talked about last episode, this is 4 years in the making or so. So we're excited. All right. Now for today's episode. Special guest, John Coyle, bootstrapped e-commerce marketing. John, let's just unpack all this for a little bit. Tell us about your story. Give us a little bit of where we're at, and let's just dive right in.
Yeah, so I've been kind of in the digital marketing, online marketing space since like 2014 now. So like 5 years, and which is like, you know.
So you're saying you're a grandfather in the e-commerce space?
Yeah, I am an OG in online marketing with 5 years experience. It's a unique space in that way. So yeah, I've been doing this for a while. I started out just doing like SEO, so like ranking, like at first I was just like helping local businesses rank organically for like Plumber in Salt Lake City, Utah. Mm-hmm. And then I went from there to an agency where I was kind of the head of paid social of all things, because I'd picked up some experience running like Facebook ads for like a startup I was just kind of working with on the side, and I knew Facebook ads. So they're like, hey, great, you're our head of paid social. This was back in 2015 where like to be head of paid social, the qualification was like, oh, you've ran an ad on Facebook, so you're the head of paid social. So yeah, like I got to be their head of paid social and manage, a lot of money. They had like, clients spending some pretty big dollars on Facebook. So I was really fortunate to like, kind of get an in doing that and get a lot of experience, in a time where maybe I felt like I didn't deserve it, and that also kind of gave me some connections to some other people who actually did know what they were doing. So I got to learn from them. So yeah, fast forward a couple of years of doing that, got to a point where I felt like I did know what I was doing. And then just sort of in 2017, so October 2017, so about 2 years ago, struck out on my own. And now I work mainly with e-commerce companies, mostly with direct-to-consumer brands. So they're selling their product primarily directly to consumers via their website. not through third parties like Amazon and stuff like that. I mean, some of them do that, but I'm working with their direct to consumer, like on their site. And I run paid ads on paid traffic on all kinds of channels. Facebook is usually where we start, Facebook, Instagram, but we run Google, Pinterest, Snapchat. Snapchat's getting really big for us, actually.
We get asked this all the time, but why do you start on Facebook and Instagram?
A couple reasons. So number one, like completely honest, familiarity. Like we know the platform super well, right? And number two, it's a really big platform. Like everybody's audience is on Facebook and Instagram. And then number three, like the only reason that we would not start on the platform is because there's we're working with a product that has that's sort of more native to Google, right? So this isn't a product that we want to really interrupt people's day with. It's a product that people are shopping for. And so we just want to start on Google. Most of the companies we work with aren't like that. It's sort of more of a product that's a little bit more native to Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, that's kind of why we start there. It's the best, it's the biggest and most advanced interruptive ad buying channel right now.
Love it. That's a good takeaway.
Yeah. So, and then, we also, manage people's email marketing, SMS marketing for them. They're what we call like owned audiences.
When you're talking SMS, are you talking about Facebook Messenger? Are you talking about texting?
I'm talking about, texting. SMS
texting,
is, text message marketing. You can do MMS as well, but which is like sending pictures and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Are you doing anything with Facebook Messenger?
Yeah, we've done quite a bit with Facebook Messenger. We don't, it's still Facebook sandbox, so we like to own our audiences on our own email list or on our own text messenger list if we can, or text message list if we can. But then, we do build up Messenger a little bit. We see it as sort of a semi-owned audience.
How do you decide whether to do an SMS campaign for like an email lead generation campaign or to do kind of your traditional email lead generation as opposed to SMS?
So a lot of times these days, we sort of go for both, right? So if we're running ads to, let's say, an opt-in page. So I'm guessing, for crowdfunding, you guys do a lot of lead generation before the launch, right? Where you build up an email list. I could be wrong.
That's right.
Yeah. So we'll start to actually instead of just asking for an email right there, we'll run, just start out by just running a variation, right? So running a split test on that where you ask for email and phone and just make it clear that phone is optional. You need your TCPA language there. You need all your legal stuff. Thomas, I know that you can, take care of that. But if you're not using Thomas, you need to make sure all your legal stuff is there. So the way that we do that is we make that phone field optional, and then we have our TCPA language there. And then we just make it clear that phone field's optional. So we just run a split variation of our email opt-in one. And, we find 60, 70% of the people will put their phone in and opt into text message alerts in that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. And then do you obviously the open rate substantially higher with SMS, with text message. In terms of traffic and clicks, what do you see?
Yeah, so massively, a massive amount more clicks, a massive amount more traffic for your text message list. The big issue, the big barrier you need to overcome is it's not as cheap as email. So email is pretty dang cheap in terms of how much you can send for how much it costs.
Let's talk about cheapness of that just for our listeners so they kind of get a feel for that. Cost per click, cost per opt-in. What do you consider a good range?
Yeah. So on email, for example, let's say you're using something like MailChimp, you're going to be on a plan that allows you to send let's say 1 million emails a month. And that plan's going to cost you $500 or something like that. Those are not accurate numbers. What I just said, I just brought those off the top of my head. But with the biggest difference with text is that you're going to have a cost per message you send. So whether you send SMS or MMS, it's going to cost you per message you send. So a big thing that we've actually started doing, a lot of people just mass send their text lists because they're just hey, they just see it as another ad buying, traffic buying channel. We're buying traffic this way. And a lot of times, the cost per click does work out to be pretty cheap. It depends how much you text your list, but we could be talking 10 cent clicks here, 10, 20 cent clicks, or even less if you get a high click-through rate, but you're paying per message. So, you got to balance there, right? Do you send a really clickbaity message that gets a bunch of clicks, or do you send something a little bit more clear?
And this is after you've paid money on Facebook to acquire the lead originally,
them,
right?
Right. Yeah. So
this is an ongoing 10 cent per click cost.
Right.
What's interesting about this is back in the day, right? you were running Facebook ads 2015, so you know how it was. You could get clicks in the US for under 10 cents. You could get clicks in Europe, Asia, other places for even a penny, right? And those were actual clicks, some mobile, some desktop. So you make a great point. Unless you have a targeted list, then it's basically just running ads again. Now, granted, they might be kind of warmer, but it's a little more expensive. Yeah.
So we play with segmentation with text message. So we so right now we're actually using a third-party tool, but we're working with them, their developers and their API to allow us to do segmentation so that we can create engagement-based segments in our text message list. So like if people aren't clicking our texts, we stop sending to them after a while. So it just is it's a more efficient way to make sure our traffic is a little bit more warm when we send those text messages.
That's great. You know, for anyone listening, if you look at pricing for Twilio, if you were to use your own system or build your own system, you're at about 3/4 of a penny. So 0.0075 cents. So just shy of 1 penny to send a message. If anyone's listening and wants to build their own system, one platform that I've seen that has the cheapest rates, it's called Telenyx. I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's TELNYX. So it's not your name brand like Twilio, but it's 1/4 of a penny to send a text message. And so that's if you're looking at building your own platform, that's the way to go. But that's what I struggle with, right? Because I look at it and it's like, if I'm going to get somebody to opt in, if somebody has Messenger on their phone, every time you send a message, it's going to pop up. And you basically can send them unlimited messages for free.
So John, going back to Facebook Messenger, and it sounds like, again, it's kind of in their sandbox still. It's not quite there yet. What are your thoughts on Messenger for 2020 and beyond? Do you feel like Facebook Messenger is going to become the new SMS, MMS type platform? Or do you feel like there's still a lot of work there? And why haven't you maybe dove into that a little bit more?
So we do build some pretty big Messenger lists, but here's the barriers. Okay. Here are the barriers. Here are the issues why we don't go all in on Messenger. Number one, diversification, right? And I'll talk about that in a broad sense a little bit later. But you don't really own that data, right? Like Facebook still owns that data. Whereas if you get somebody's email or their phone number, you own the data. Like you can take it across different tools or whatever. The other reason is I don't know if you've even seen this, Thomas, but or if you guys have seen this, Facebook is changing the rules on what you can do on Messenger constantly. So they, earlier this year, they started being a lot more strict about the messages you could send to that list that you had created. Already, though, you have to send, there's sort of this engagement period. So if you don't have subscription, you have to send them another message that gets them to engage. They have to engage with that message. Then you can send them a message with your link in it.
I found that really interesting.
Yeah. And Facebook is actually they made it even tighter earlier this year, where we had to start saying that this was a community update, which, if you kind of squint, it is a community update, but it's, if I wouldn't want anyone from compliance at Facebook to take a close look, right? And anytime I'm thinking things like that, I don't love it, so that's why I'm not all in on that platform. But that said, we do it totally because it's free, right? Yeah. That's an owned audience you can reach for free. So we're going to take advantage of that as much as we can, for sure.
If you had to peek inside the mind of Facebook, do they become more like Facebook's traditional ad platform in the future, or do they become more and more strict?
I kind of think so. I think I think you start buying, impressions. You already can, buy impressions with your audience. I think, if you think about Facebook and Google, the traffic giants, the 800-pound gorillas of traffic, they've got so many buyers, so many people buying traffic, that they're sort of in this place where they are so concerned with the user experience, right? Because they're what's the worst thing we could do? You lose our users. So if you look at what they're doing on the ad platform, on Messenger, on Facebook, and then if you look at the updates Google's making to their search algorithms, it's so geared toward trying to create a user experience that keeps people coming back and using it. So I think the last thing that Facebook wants for Messenger is for it to become like people's email inboxes, where nowadays people's email inboxes are crowded. There's tons of promotions in their email inbox. Yep. And I actually don't necessarily think that's a totally bad thing, because people expect you to promote to them in their inbox. But
exactly.
I don't think that's what Facebook wants for Messenger. So
Yeah, that's a good hot take. I like that a lot. Well, we got into weeds a little bit here, John.
Yeah,
but I thought that was a fascinating conversation. So let's get into kind of our first topic, I guess you could say, and that's identifying successfully your competitive advantages and then aligning your marketing with them.
Yep.
I want to kind of dive into that a little bit more and get a little bit of a broader picture for those that aren't like maybe Thomas and myself and get really excited about the data and the numbers and everything, and just looking at this from a really broad level, So
yep.
Let's talk about that for a bit, wherever you want to go.
Yeah. So the comparison I make, so I'll just kind of give some background on like kind of what brought me to this sort of idea. I work with a lot of direct-to-consumer brands who want to reach their audiences via, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, or whatever, some kind of paid traffic channel. They want to increase their revenue from their email list, stuff like this.
And for our audience, just to understand, direct-to-consumer, they've got a product, the consumer buys it. So it's a toothbrush, and you're selling like that kind of thing, right?
Like you don't sell it to Target, and Target sells it to the consumer.
Yeah,
you sell it directly to the consumer. So, so DTC, if you hear me say DTC, that's the abbreviation I'll use for that. So, I'll have a lot of DTC brands that come, they kind of want to acquire customers. They want to do it profitably. They're bootstrapped, all that. And so they say, hey, well, you're like a rock star Facebook advertiser, right? So, just make this happen for me. And that's their strategy for doing it is like, I'll just go hire the best person I can find to do it. And, that's not like a bad idea. It's like a pretty smart idea. It's a very entrepreneurial type thing to do, right? Like, I don't know how to do this. Let me find someone who does. I was giving a presentation on this, and like on a Q&A panel, somebody was asking me like, how do I, advertise this product on Facebook? And I'm like asking them questions about their product. I'm like, what? Like, there's no reason that people would buy this. Like, it doesn't matter who you get to run Facebook ads for you. You just like don't have a reason for people to buy. So I made the comparison for him of like, look, like, let's take like Lance Armstrong, right? Dude is a super good cyclist, super doped up, right? Like all kinds of things going for him. Like he's probably the best person you can put on a bike in his prime if you want to win a race, right? If you're not worried about doping at all. You put the guy on a tricycle and he's not going to win the Tour de France. Like you just, like the vehicle matters. Okay. So the competitive advantages that I'll kind of lay out, I've got like 6 or 7 of them, I think. They're the vehicle, right? Like these are the things you kind of need in order for the vehicle to sort of work. And then you go get like the best cyclist you can get, or the best driver you can get or whatever, if that makes sense. So that's sort of the background on this idea.
That's brilliant. I love it.
So, so the first one, like, I'll go there. There's sort of 2 sort of categories here. And like, you could say like, there's like the front facing category, and that's like things that you can highlight in your marketing or in your messaging. And then there's the back end category. And that's like, you like things like, oh, you get this product, cheaper than anybody else in the world can possibly get it by like 100 times or something like that. Right. And that's not necessarily a competitive advantage you can market, but you can utilize it, in your marketing. So I'll talk about the competitive advantages and how you can use them.
Okay. Yeah. So should we dive right into those?
Yep, I'll dive in right now. So first up is brand power or an influencer, or some major influencers. So examples, I'll give you examples on each category. So Nike, tons of brand power, right, and influencers. Kylie Cosmetics, like Kylie Jenner's cosmetic line, right, huge influencer behind it. Snow Teeth Whitening, if you guys are familiar with Snow Teeth Whitening. It's like the teeth whitening brand that like Floyd Mayweather's influenced before, Rob Gronkowski. So that's a big competitive advantage, is like kind of that celebrity power or that super big brand power, right?
Pick, how powerful would you say that competitive advantage is? So, like to get yourself a spokesman like that?
Yeah.
I think back to Foreman and the Foreman Grill, right?
Right. Yeah. I want to caution people here. I don't want people to listen to this podcast and not already have this going for them and think like, I just need to go all in on influencers. I need to get some like big celebrities behind this thing.
I love that caution because I thought the same thing. A lot of times we'll work with people. If I just had this guy promoted, that's all I need. And is that really true, right? You have to ask yourself that question, be honest with yourself. So a little bit of insight there, like, not to go too into the weeds on what you were just saying, but I'll tail off that a little bit. So I'm pretty good. Well, I shouldn't say friends. I'm fairly like, I know fairly well, like have a lot of similar connections. And I've spoken at events with Josh Elzete, who owns Snow Teeth Whitening. He's the CEO and founder of Snow Teeth Whitening.
And one of the things he has said is that Floyd Mayweather doesn't actually drive a ton of sales for them. There's a couple things Floyd Mayweather does. So I'll get into a second, like what you can do if you've got major influencers, what you can do from an advertising perspective. But the other thing that Floyd Mayweather does for Snow Teeth Whitening, according to Josh, is that he is actually like that kind of banner influencer that you then approach the influencer that has 250,000 followers, but they're really highly engaged, but they're kind of cheaper. And you can negotiate the deal with them that will get you a really good return on investment for investing in like a 250, like a kind of a, what you might call a micro influencer compared to Floyd Mayweather. You might get them to take an affiliate deal, or you might get them to take, a less good deal because they get to promote the same product that Floyd's, that Floyd Money Mayweather is promoting, or that Rob Gronkowski is promoting. So that's what that big influencer does. That's like one thing that they do. The other thing that, I want to put a caution out there, because I have a good friend who, is a media buyer. He's like, Facebook advertiser. That's the main thing he does. And he's working with some brands, that I won't name drop on his behalf, but some brands with some, maybe Jenner family, family, Kardashian family influencers working with them. And
would you say are the top influencers in the whole world when you're talking influencers? Probably
they've got the biggest, right? Yeah, they're probably up there, in terms of physical products, especially. So, he actually has a whole presentation he's given about they paid, this person for a post, right? Like just straight up paid her fee. She says, this is my fee, and they paid it for a post. And he's like, it's the biggest loss we've ever had on a campaign in terms of ROI. Like, he's like, it's one of the biggest fails in my career. So then they went back to her and they said, okay, I'll tell you what, like, we'll pay you less for the post. But what we will do is we'll pay you 5% of all the sales that come, they give her some tracking links and stuff like that. 5% of all the sales that come through your post. But in exchange for that, we want to be able to use the content you create in ads that we run. Right. And this is how you use influencers now.
And they get her to promote or him to promote for, 5-10% of what they drive? Or do they also have to pay a fee to be able to license what they create? Like, what's the balance there? Because I've found from our experience, influencers want that $100,000 fee to post, and they won't work on performance, probably because they know their performance is pretty crappy, right?
Well, it's all about branding.
Yeah. So that's kind of what his take on it was. He's like, you got to grease the wheels with money. You can't just give them performance. They won't take it. You can negotiate them down from their big fee by saying, hey, like, look, I'm going to take your content and I'm going to run paid traffic to it. So you're going to get more followers. And you're going to get 5% of the sales. And so then you just say, hey, look, like, you negotiate, you figure out what they will do. Like, what's the lowest they'll go for a post? And if they won't drop their fee, a lot of times he says, if they won't drop their fee, what I will do is I'll just try and negotiate more posts out of them. So I've got more content to run for ads. And then I'll run it. And then once they start seeing those commissions come in, because I'm putting paid traffic behind it, they're going to start making money. Once they start seeing that come in, the deal gets a whole lot easier to make,
Yeah, that's smart.
So this is how you use influencers. Don't just like go start paying $100,000 to get, Jenners to promote your product.
How to hack influencers in 2020 and beyond. I love that. It's a little bit of a hybrid way of going about it. I think that might be the most brilliant solution we've heard out of all the different ways people talk about using influencers and the failures they've had with influencers. Right, what you're saying,
And what level of influencers are you going for? Obviously, you have your YouTube celebrities, and then you have your major sports celebrities, right, et cetera. At what level do you say that's not big enough? Or does it need to be a celebrity that kind of the mass population recognizes?
Yeah. I mean, I think a little bit of it depends on how deep your pockets are, right? Because you got to keep in mind, you're going to have to grease the wheels, with this influencer and pay for some posts initially. So
the idea behind influencers, if I understand you correctly, is, John, this isn't pay them once, be done. This is, how can we be working together 2 years down the road still, and you're still our brand ambassador?
Yeah, you got it. That's exactly right. So, a couple I'll highlight like the opposite end strategy for you guys. Like, if you're not going to go with like a Gronk or like a, Kylie Jenner or something like that. Yeah. What we do, I have a brand that is like a home decor brand, and, they've got some dollars to spend on influencers. But what we actually do instead is we find the people, and this is like, this is a little hacky and it's a little in the weeds, but like we find people whose Instagram feeds just like reflect what we want. Like they're like, hey, visually, this is awesome. Like this is what we want associated with our brand. But we find people who it's like, oh, it's very clear that this person wants to be an influencer, but they don't have a very big following. And we just send them product and they'll usually post about it.
How are you finding those people? Because that's brilliant. I love the strategy, but how do you do that at scale so you find the 100 people like that in the world that have that type of network,
At scale, it's a manual process. So this is actually probably the beautiful thing about it is that it is a manual process. And that's why like not a whole bunch of people are exploiting it. So yeah, VAs probably would be the way to do it at scale, but you're going to have to, dial in the process beforehand.
You're personally going and finding these people. Maybe they got 20, 30,000 people. They don't even really know they're an influencer, but they probably want to be one. Not even that. Okay, gotcha. And then you're saying, look, 5,000 or less, and you're like, this could be a really good contact. They're not really doing much. Let's approach them and let's give them that celebrity feel, and then they feel real special. They might hook you up, but then you find more like that once you found that profile, that avatar.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, they don't realize the value that they could bring, and they're just stoked to get some product from you. Yep. And so then you give them some product, they post, and then you just take that same kind of approach. Like, hey, I want to, I want to advertise from here. So another big side of this is data. So any influencer you work with, you want to try to see if you can advertise from their Instagram account, right? And these people are easy to pitch on this because you're going to say like, hey, I'm going to advertise from your Instagram account. Like you're just going to get more followers. The person who has 3,000 followers and they want, to be an influencer, they're like, yeah, I'm stoked on that. The people who are major celebrities, they're going to be like, wait, what? Like they're going to be the ones who have pause about that.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, are you going to hurt my name? Are you going to tarnish my reputation? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So then you have to kind of go into like, no, we're only going to advertise content you've created and stuff like that. So yeah, like, you use these micro people, you just say, hey, we're going to like pay to grow your following. And, sometimes you might not even have to give them a commission, but you can kick them a little commission as well. And then, you probably can even leverage that, what we're kind of working on. You can probably even leverage that into an exclusive relationship with them so that, you're going to grow their following. They're going to get bigger. Other people are going to start approaching them, but you could probably nail that exclusive relationship. So, that person for home decor can't promote another brand, right?
You're a talent scout for Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. It's a little cutthroat, I guess, but you're giving them their break, right? And then, like, I don't know, if you treat them fairly, they're going to be happy with it. You can even
honestly, we're laughing about it. It's a pretty good deal for somebody who has 3,000 to 5,000 followers and doesn't necessarily know what they're doing, but in their mind, they want to become that uber celebrity. And here you are, the expert Facebook marketer, the expert Instagram advertiser, willing to help them. And it's a pretty good trade.
Right. Yeah. And so you're just kind of like, making sure you don't have the liability of them jumping ship. But yeah, like, and you can get them to do probably a lot of content for you, like so much more than you can get that celebrity to do. You know what I mean? Like,
are you trying to get them to post organically or with paid ads or a combination? Because if you're running, it feels like having the brand run on their own Instagram would be more beneficial because then you're getting those followers and then you can post organically to them for free for however long in the future.
So our approach, and given this isn't super fleshed out, right? So if you want to flesh this out more, like feel free, let me know how it goes for you. But our approach is essentially that we'll reach out to them. We'll say, hey, we want to send you this product. We love your feed. Like, can we just send you this product for free? And they'll be like, yeah, great. Send it to me. And then I just say, hey, well, I just want to confirm, will you post about this? And then, when you post about this, will you also, whether you post this content, I'm not telling you even have to post all of this content. And a lot of times I don't even tell them they have to post. I just figure they probably will. But I was like, hey, I'll just say like, hey, I just love the way that you create videos and you create photos. Like I just need more content, to promote this product. So if I send you one of these, whether you posted it or not, would you mind shooting a video like this and a video like this and these two types of photos, right? So I'll give them like 2 or 3 different kind of pieces of content. And then I'll just say like, and would you mind if I use those for ads? So like if it goes no further, basically what I've just done is I've crowdsourced some user generated content by just sending a product to someone I know creates good user generated content. And then I can use that user generated content in ads from my own page if it goes no further. But if they do post about it and they like it and stuff like that, like I can I can leverage it from there and be like, hey, can I, advertise your content from your page and grow your followers for you? And then if they're like even sketched out about it, like I can offer them a little commission.
And when you say your content, are you referring to the content that they created of the product you sent them?
Yeah. So the photos and videos, when I say content, like assets or whatever you want to call those, the actual photos and videos. So my initial ask of them is like, it might not even be an ask for them to post. It might just be like, hey, I just love like the videos and photos in your feed. Like, if I sent you this, like, would you just create like a video like this for me and a photo like this for me, and allow me to use that in ads? And if you want, I'll tag you, or like you can even say like, I'm totally flexible. If you want to stay anonymous, you can. If you want, I can tag you. If you want, whatever. I love what you do, and we're looking for more good content that is a little bit more genuine than what we create in the studio. And they're usually pretty down for that.
I want to just take a pause here and just kind of give a little bit of takeaway to Funded Today Nation, our listeners. The reason this works, and we've talked about this before, and Thomas and I do this all the time at our own company, when we do bonuses or when we want to talk about incentives, we could give like $1,000 bonus, or we could give $1,000 Amazon gift card, or we could give a concert away, or we could give a trip away,
or whatever,
or a massage or whatever. 100% of the time, giving away product, giving away an experience is better than giving away cash. And it carries long-term value and relationship. And if you're trying to build relationships with people you don't know on Instagram, what John has just described here is extremely powerful. We just barely did this, full disclosure, with Oh Snap. We worked with one of the biggest celebrities in the world who had done a lot of promotion, believe it or not, for the product PopSocket, which did $168 million in 2018 and was like number 2 or 3 on the Inc. 5000 list for that year. And we worked with the celebrity who was no longer working with PopSocket because PopSocket had grown so big that I guess they had, not renewed the contract or whatever. And we were able to get all kinds of relationships simply from sending out OSNAP product to this person. And it worked brilliantly, even though this person had probably made tens of thousands of dollars in promotions and affiliate relationships and all kinds of things, because she was looking to start that relationship up again with somebody else. So it works really well. Now, John, a follow-up question for you. How do you get in touch with these people? Is it easy because they're only, those 3,000 to 5,000 people? So maybe they're not getting bombarded like those million person plus Instagram celebrities and influencers? Or do you find that you have to be creative in your ad copy to engage with them?
Yeah. So first in line, like you probably know a couple of them that like, just are in your Instagram feed that like you went to high school with, right? Like this is just the environment we live in.
Friends, family, schools.
Yeah,
friends, family, schools. It's such a, who do you know? Who can help you? Why would they help you? Well, we're friends. We're from the same high school. We're from this. Man, you're doing so good in your life right now. What's going on?
Yeah.
Very cool.
So that first, and then second, like, yeah, if they're like less than 5,000 people and you just like, for lack of a better term, slide in their DMs on Instagram and just say like, hey, I want to send you some free product. Like, cause I love your feed. Like, yeah, I mean, that's probably going to get you there. You'd probably be fine.
Let me ask a question, John, that I'm quite curious about. On one end of the spectrum, and I'm going to step back real quick. On one end of the marketing spectrum, you have direct response marketing. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have branding, right? And so with direct response marketing, that would be somebody running a Facebook ad, driving traffic directly to the landing page where somebody can make a purchase, and then you're trying to get them to convert right there to make the buy, right, or whatever the action is you're wanting them to make. And then on the completely other end would be branding, where you're just trying to get your name out there, right? The branding is you're driving down the street, you see the McDonald's billboard, and you got all this branding. So then a week later when you're hungry and you think, I want to go eat at McDonald's, right? Obviously, you know that stuff. I'm just kind of sharing that broad.
The Coca-Cola Super Bowl ad with the polar bears.
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so with Instagram, it feels like it's a hybrid of not quite direct response marketing because it's not that targeted, but it's more branding. And with my experience, right, because we work with so many startups launching their campaign on Kickstarter and elsewhere, that so often we tell them, look, don't worry about branding. You need to generate revenue, right? Mm-hmm. When you're spending $1, you're not trying to do branding so somebody's buying your product a year down the road. You need to get the sales, like you buy the clicks and then 10 minutes later somebody's buying, right? That's what you need to do as a startup.
Yeah.
So at what stage for I don't know if you work with different stages of companies from just launching to maybe 10, 15 employees to established brands. At what point are you working with these influencers and kind of taking this approach you mentioned?
Right.
Or kind of once you have some extra cash to then kind of build the branding, are you doing that?
So there's, any of the competitive advantage I'll talk about, so brand power, influencer, like that, they can apply at any stage, but there's sort of three kind of stages that I define when I'm working with a brand. And the first stage is like traction. And that's kind of what you mentioned, where it's like, hey, like we need our ad dollars to turn into more ad dollars, or we're going to be bankrupt like next week, right? Or we're going to be out of business like really, really, really quick, right? And that's, because I'm working with all bootstrapped brands. So initially what we need some kind of traction, right? So we need a way to turn, whatever dollars we have in budget into more dollars. And that could be like any number of ways for a business. Usually the ones that are working with me, it's like we're going to spend money on ads and we need it to ROI for us. But if it's like we don't even have money for ads, then you might be saying like, okay, well, I need to figure out how to get Target to pick up my product, or how to get selling on Amazon or something like that. Right. And so that's kind of the traction stage. And then the next stage is like, I call it like, you could call it like fortification or diversification. So usually what happens in the traction stage is we find like one thing that works, right? So we get Facebook ads working for us. We get Google ads working for us. And you could call that a sales channel or a traffic channel. But to scale really hard just on that one thing that works is really risky, right? Because it could get pulled out, from under you at any time. It's not really, you don't own the traffic, somebody else does, or you don't own and that's really it. Mm-hmm. Like, whether you're going through a retailer, Amazon, or whether you're buying traffic, you don't own that traffic. Someone else owns it and you're buying it. So in the fortification phase or the diversification phase, that could look like, being like, okay, well, let's find some other traffic channels that will do what we need. You still need all of your traffic to return an ROI, right? So let's say we got Facebook and Instagram ads working. Well, maybe we should start selling on Amazon as well. Or, hey, we got Facebook and Instagram ads working. Maybe we should use influencers, or maybe we should try Google or YouTube and see if that works. Or maybe we should go into retail and see if that works, right? We're just diversifying and making sure that like if that main sales channel or main traffic channel gets pulled out from under us, or it gets really, really expensive, or stops buying, or, if it's a retailer, they stop buying from us or something like that. We're just making sure like we're going to kind of be able to keep the lights on if that happens. And then, the last stage is like scale, right? So once we've got a few of those diversifications, we're just going to scale up and keep adding diversifications. But the thing about like kind of diversification or fortification and scale, it's sort of a cyclical thing. Like you're always doing both. But I always say like in the fortification stage, you want to allocate some resource, whether that's because you've already got traction. So you've got some kind of profit coming in. So you want to take some of those profit dollars and allocate them in ways that you're like, hey, I don't know if this will actually return, this $1 will return $2 today, but it potentially will, and it's a diversification from what I'm already doing. So yeah, like that's sort of why it's in that stage after traction. At traction, you just need to get one thing to work. So influencers can live at traction, but you've got to be able to do it right. Like you don't, if you just go pay a celebrity for a post, and you're like thinking, oh, well, that will just get me so much brand reach. Like that's the wrong thing. You're in the traction stage. Like you need to look at how can I use influencers, like use the resources or budget that I have to use influencers in a way that is going to return, make my dollars return dollars, profitable dollars instantly. Right. And so it's like, hey, if I can send it to people who have, you might variate my strategy and say, hey, I'm going to send it to people who have less than 5,000 followers, and I'm just going to get them to post just for sending them a product. I can afford to do that. And even if each of those people only sends 2 or 3 sales, like that's profitable for me. And I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to like hunt Instagram for as many of those people as possible. And that's your initial like strategy, right? So it could live in the traction stage, it can live in the diversification stage or the scale stage. It can really live anywhere. But what is important about it is like the mindset around it. If you're in the traction stage, you can't have a branding mindset.
I love what you shared. And it made me think of something, right? As we're discussing all of these strategies, people who might be listening to this, if they listen to a lot of podcasts or like to research, there are so many different ways to skin a cat, so to speak, right? There is so many ways you can market a brand, market a product. And the stuff John is sharing is some things I had never heard of that I think are very innovative and unique, and I think ingenious, right? They're great. But somebody who's looking at starting a business shouldn't feel overwhelmed, like, here's all of this stuff, right? The most important thing, my recommendation is sit down, think what's going to make the most sense. Or like John said, just go start with Facebook ads, right?
Yep.
And the goal is to get traction. And then once you have traction, then worry about diversification. Don't try to do everything at once or you'll end up doing nothing.
Yeah.
So,
and another word for traction is product market fit. Thomas and I found that really early on with Funded Today. We raised 100,000 plus for a project, and suddenly 20 more people wanted us to see if we could do that for them. We knew there was something there. It was easy to tell. And there are some businesses that's going to take a while to explain. We understand that. But by and large, if you're looking for the quick wins, if you're looking for what's going to make sense or not, John's story is probably very similar. He did well for some people. Other people wanted him to do well for them. That's when you know you've achieved that product market fit. If it's a product, you have a bunch of people saying, I want one of those, or you run a Facebook ad and people are tagging their friends. Those are early signs that you have something that other people want.
You guys didn't start Funded Today with a podcast.
No, we didn't. That's a great example. Yeah. Love that. Yeah.
So
love that.
Yeah. And I mean, my overlying message here, I think, you guys are I love getting in the weeds on tactical stuff, and we kind of keep doing that here, but, and that's great. Cause I think, people who can use that. But my overlying message here is essentially saying hey, identify the stage that you're in, and then identify what your competitive advantages are. And that will really highlight your probably traction path or your diversity, whatever the kind of next actions you should take. If you know what stage you're in and you know what your competitive advantages are, it's kind of easy to figure it out.
Do we want to keep going down that list and just rapid fire some of those now, John?
Yeah. I'll try to be quicker because we spent a lot of time on influencers. So
I don't mind if this one goes a little long, because I do find the content fascinating. And I think some of the stuff we've talked about is going to be really applicable to our listeners. So don't feel rushed by any means.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the headlines of the others that I have on the list. And then you guys will know, what do we want to spend more time on and stuff. So, brand power, influencer, backing, that's kind of number one. Offer, your ability to create an offer, that's number two. Your messaging, unique messaging or a unique angle or a unique selling proposition, a unique product. This is what we see a lot of on Facebook, right? That's number three. Your cost or ability to pay, right? Do you have, for some reason, the ability to pay more to acquire a customer than anyone else? That's a competitive advantage. Yeah. Margins or lifetime values, right? It's a combination.
Okay. Yeah, lifetime value. That's a good way to look at it too. A lot of people are afraid to break even because they don't necessarily have anything on the back end, but that's something to consider for a lot of people. If you can break even now and suddenly have a 100,000 person email list, well, you essentially have 100,000 people that are going to generate you 100% net profit on whatever you decide to sell them next.
Yeah. So I'll hit my headlines here, and then I'll give you the examples on those headlines, and then you guys can decide where you want to dive deeper. So trend is another one. This is just super on trend right now, and might not be on trend next week, but you don't care because you're just kind of making money when you can. And then massive demand is another one. This could go hand in hand with trend. But, massive demand, kind of the differentiator I say is your best friend, if you're trying to sell something that has massive demand, is your best friend is a hungry market, right? So then there's not a lot of people, there's more demand than supply for something. So that's kind of another competitive advantage. And then last but not least is data, right? So do you have a massive amount of data, of customers, right? Or of people who buy your type of stuff. And then kind of the last thing I'll say here is honestly, if you really want to be successful, you want to stack these competitive advantages.
You need them all.
Yeah. As many as you can.
Yeah, it's like this. It's like our 7 Ps. We talk about if you're even missing one of those 7 Ps, your chances for success diminish drastically. The same is true with these competitive advantages. The more you have, the stronger you're going to be.
I'll give you the examples on each headline there. So
sure, let's do it.
An example of offer is that everyone knows is Wish, right? They sell everything so much cheaper than everybody else, right? Quality varies, right? Mileage may vary, but everybody knows hey, you want to get it cheap, you go to Wish. They just have that like really crazy good offer. And that is actually stacked with their competitive advantage of cost, right? They're getting the product to people cheaper than anyone else's, and they're passing that savings along. Another big thing we are seeing on the opposite side, so let's say you can't get it cheaper, are a lot of these giveaway companies, right? So you can sell commodities this way. So we've worked with a company that they sell hats and shirts, right? Like everybody sells hats and shirts. But what do they do? Like they say, hey, you know what? No, we sell hats and shirts to people who are into diesel trucks. And we do that by making every $5 you spend on our site enter you to win a $100,000 like diesel truck. Right. So they sell hats and shirts to people this way. So they have this unique offering, right? Yeah,
that's awesome.
So that's a really great competitive advantage to have, like just this really strong, like standout offer. Messaging, hook and angle. So like, like that's like the unique products that you're seeing on Facebook. Like, this product does something you've never seen before. Like, it's like you didn't know you need it until you saw this video type of thing.
We talk about this on Kickstarter all the time on that one, John.
Right.
We just call it never been seen before on Kickstarter. Right. There's some things that actually have been seen before other places, but the Kickstarter community themselves haven't seen it. It appears new and unique to them, and that makes all the difference.
Right. Yeah. So, and then the other way you can spin this is like, I have some insight into like, I don't know if I should name the brand, but, well, I will, I can. So Blissy, they sell like bedding products.
Okay.
They sell silk pillow sheets. Silk pillow sheets are not a new thing. It's like, it's a commodity, but they do it with kind of like, advertorial type angles of like, this is like the beauty secret of celebrities type of thing. Or this is, this mom realized that her daughter had acne because her pillowcase was disgusting type of thing. So like a new way to spin an old thing is another way to do this. But like basically the overarching idea here on a competitive advantage is like, this is kind of one that can be manufactured if you don't have it, but you have to have a new, you have to have like a way that like stands out to say, something new.
Yeah.
An example we've used is for like a wood sunglass brand, which I'll get to in a second, like a wood sunglass brand that actually has a different competitive advantage if you go back 2 years. But we started saying like, hey, instead of just saying these are wood sunglasses, like, why don't we just start saying like, oh, these are sunglasses for wakeboarders, or these are sunglasses for surfers, or these are special sunglasses for people who like to jet ski, right? Or something like that. So it's like, oh no, like now, like these aren't just wood sunglasses, like these are jet skier sunglasses. Like
we saw that with one of our clients from several years ago. Thomas might remember it. William Painter. A lot of people in Funded today still wear them. William Painter basically said, these are celebrity sunglasses. Wear the sunglasses of the celebrities.
Right.
And that made all the difference. Every time I wear them, I'm like, I'm wearing the same sunglasses. It even works for me, So
yeah. So that's a competitive advantage, like some kind of unique hook or angle messaging, unique selling proposition.
And by the way, John, playing off of what you talked about earlier with influencers, they weren't necessarily the sunglasses of celebrities. They sent out hundreds of free pairs to all the famous celebrities in the world. The celebrities took a picture with them on their Instagram.
Yeah, you can see how these start to intertwine, these different competitive advantages.
I love that.
So another one is cost or ability to pay. And you can see how this goes hand in hand with offer. Like Wish uses their competitive advantage of cost. Like they've got the products at the best cost. And they have, deep pockets. So they have ability to pay a lot to acquire somebody who's a customer because they have high lifetime values. So they leverage, so they've got that. They leverage that to create the offer competitive advantage too. So Uber is a good example here, not bootstrapped, obviously. And, they've already come out and said like, hey, we might never be profitable, but they just had deep enough pockets that they're like, hey, we've got the ability to pay a lot. Another great advantage here is like, there's some of the supplement brands out there that just have crazy, crazy high lifetime values. So they might be able to pay $100 to acquire a customer who only buys something for $50 because they know, in a month they're going to buy another one, and another month they're going to buy another one. And on average, somebody buys, 5 of these things type of thing.
Now, taking this to a micro level, John, just for our crowdfunding listeners specifically, when you're developing your first crowdfunding product, you really need to be thinking about your next 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Because that's where this cost factor can really play into the customer lifetime value. So keep that in mind just as a takeaway if you're thinking about this specifically as it relates to Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Where do I go next? Yes, you've got your first great idea. What's your next? What's your third? What's your fourth? Because that's where the true exponential dividends come into play, I would say.
So the next thing I've got on my list here is trend, right? So you're selling something that's on trend. So the example I have here is a little bit old, but it's fidget spinners, because I actually know the guy who created Fidgetly, who was like, one of the biggest fidget spinner sites. And, the name of the game on trend is just be first to the market, right? Early bird gets the worm. So like, this is where all your drop shippers live. Like they're just trying to ride whatever trend's going to come next. So yeah, I mean, if you're talking about crowdfunding, like a lot of times, so the Wood sunglass brand that I mentioned, like they were some of the biggest sunglass campaigns of all time on Kickstarter. They've got a couple of the top 10, because they were selling Wood sunglasses when Wood sunglasses were super trendy.
We saw that trend all the time with Kickstarter. It was wallets, then it was smart luggage. This year, I'd say it's maybe green. It's what can be green and eco-friendly,
Yeah. So trend is another like big. If you're selling something that's on trend, that's a competitive advantage. You have to figure out how to leverage these competitive advantages into your long-term business, though. So then the last one is massive demand, and that's like the example I have there is like selling like I don't know, any kind of food product. Like everybody needs that, right? Or like
ubiquity. That's what we always talk about. How ubiquitous is it? How big can your market be?
Yep. Yeah. So that's a good competitive advantage too. So yeah, I don't know if there's any there that you guys are kind of like, hey, let's dive deeper into that. But
I think you've done a really good summary of them and kind of with a little back and forth. I think it even your examples really help people understand. I would say just as you listen to this Funded Today Nation, you try to think about how these particular competitive advantages can be taken to that micro level of your product or your next big idea. And I think it'll open up a lot of doors for you that you may not have even thought about before. So perfect. I love that, John.
Yeah. So, sorry, I didn't miss one. So the last one would be data. It sounds like you guys are kind of talking to a lot of people who are in early stages, so that might not necessarily be the case.
Data is where people hire companies like you or companies like us who have millions of different data points and millions of different lookalikes for all kinds of different products around the world. So if you don't, like you talked about earlier, sometimes as an entrepreneur, it is best to hire the best. And in situations like this, where you need that data point to target these people, you look at people who have targeted similar products and similar businesses and say, look, here's where I might be able to fit into this. What can you do for me? Yeah. And that's where data is so valuable nowadays with Facebook and Instagram and what you're seeing with Snapchat and different things like that. Pinterest even maybe coming along a bit in that regard, and data combining those with lookalikes. We got a whole episode on that. Yeah. Thomas talks about it's powerful.
The example I always give is like, MVMT watches, right? It's huge. Oh, yeah. But if MVMT watches launched from scratch today, I don't know how big they'd get, but they certainly couldn't grow the way that they did.
No way. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it with watches. It's so hard to stand out as a watch on Kickstarter because we've probably ran, 150 watch campaigns ourselves at Funded Today. There's just so many different people trying to create that next MVMT, and truly MVMT probably dominates all of them even today.
Right. Because they've got massive data. So, So the last thing I'll say is like, I'll give you an example of stacking advantages here. So like, I've got a client, a former client, we used to work with them. They brought everything in house actually, because that happens a lot when I get people to a certain size. But I
think it's common nature. I don't even think as marketers we need to feel bad about that. If you're an agency,
listening about it, yeah,
it's a good thing. Taking them to a level where they don't need you anymore. And yes, it's sad. We all want to work with them forever, but truly that's when they've reached success and they can spread their wings and fly.
Yeah, so. I end up training their in-house team, so that's great. Yeah. So so they've got a couple. I mentioned them earlier, but they've got a couple here, and I'll just like say a promotion that they do, and we'll see if you guys can kind of spot the headlines, right? So like, so they'll they might do a promotion for Black Friday, right? They actually, this is the promotion they did. They'll do a promotion for Black Friday where they say, hey, we sell hats, shirts, boots, knives, like different things like that on our website. Every dollar or every $5 you spend on our website gets you an entry to win this custom built diesel truck, where it's $100,000 truck. On top of that, every order this weekend, so every order you place this weekend, we're throwing cash in that order. So it could be $1, it could be 10, it could be 100. One person's going to win $5,000 though, right? So we're going to throw $5,000 in one order, right? And so we got a couple offers there, and then we're also promoting. The people who are promoting that are people who are on a Discovery Channel reality show, where they I don't want to give too much away, but you'll probably figure it out. They build diesel trucks, right? So they're well known in the diesel market. So yeah, we've got those guys promoting it. We've got both those offers, and ultimately, I'm kind of giving it away. But the reason that they're able to do these is because they've got really big margins on their products, because they buy really low. And they mark them up because of these extremely good offers. Red Bull does the same thing.
They might be buying tons of product at the same time too, to create a higher minimum order quantity, which will reduce their overall cost as well, right?
Right. Yeah. So, that's kind of what the every $5 gets you an entry thing does. So what they'll see a lot of actually this weekend when they do cash in orders, because every order gets cash, but every $5 you spend gets you an entry to win the truck. They'll see people place like 15 separate orders for $10 or something like that. Yep. But they make the money either way, so it's fine with them. But they've stacked advantages there. They're using influencers. They're using niche relevant influencers, right? They're using 2 offer stacks, and they're leveraging their high margins to create those offer stacks. And then the last thing they're kind of leveraging is that unique hook, unique angle to sell a ubiquitous kind of commodity type product. And they're doing that with really great creatives. So that's, if you've got I guess I should have said that, if that's your angle, hey, it's, unique messaging or unique selling proposition, creatives are your friend, right? You've got to have great creatives. So they've kind of got all that stacked up for them. And that's a super big recipe for really, really, really big sales. So.
Are you just salivating right now, Funded Today Nation, as you listen to some of these things? Does this get you excited with what you might be able to do with your product? I'm even having my wheels turn a little bit. So John, this is massive value. Awesome stuff.
Yeah, of course. That's what I try to do.
Let's get into kind of the final topic of the podcast today. I think this is a good chance to kind of transition. Strategizing successfully through the 3 phases of bootstrapped e-commerce. What recommendations do you have for our listeners and how best to go about creating a long-term business that is going to last and get past bootstrapping?
Sure. So first of all, I think we have this sort of in the entrepreneurial world, especially the digital marketing world, we get a little bit down on formal education. There's sort of this culture of formal education is useless. But no joke, if you didn't go to business school or whatever, Google SWOT analysis and do a SWOT analysis of your business, because that will probably let you see what your competitive advantages are. So no matter what phase you're in, first thing you need to do is you need to identify your competitive advantages, and you need to identify your threats. So, that's part of a SWOT analysis. And yeah, for example, if you were crowdfunded and you've got one product that you do a whole bunch of revenue on, your main liability is that you've got one product. So you need to probably bring it to multiple sales channels, or you need to launch another product or whatever. So yeah, I guess I'm getting a little bit in the weeds on your question, but kind of first step is to identify your competitive advantage and identify what phase you are in. And then I guess the next action is sort of based on that. What is your competitive advantage and what phase are you in? If you're in the traction phase, then you have to say okay, well, based on my competitive advantage, what do I need to do to probably get traction as fast as possible? If you're in the diversification stage, you look at your competitive advantage and you say, hey, what, besides the thing that I've got traction doing, what is the most likely thing that's going to return a good ad spend for me? Or if you're in the scale phase, you probably are looking at more of your threats. How can I start stacking these competitive advantages? Or where am I really weak on these competitive advantages? Are my costs super high? Maybe I need to start looking for ways to reduce costs. Or maybe I need
John, go to diversification. I love what you've said there. And I know you said earlier in the podcast, Funded Today didn't start from a podcast. You're exactly right. But we looked at that diversification stage and said a year or so ago, well, where else could we be adding value? Where else could we be standing out from the increased amount of competition that we have that we didn't have 5-6 years ago,
Right.
And the podcast was a perfect thing to do to showcase our expertise, to add a little bit of empathy, to make ourselves resonate from all the different people yelling and screaming about whatever it is they're offering.
Sure.
To show, look, we practice what we preach. Here's what we've done. And let us open up the kimono, so to speak, right? So I love that.
Yeah. And that's really it. Whatever phase you're in, kind of look at your next best opportunity. If you're in the scale phase, it might be hey, where can I stack more of these competitive advantages? That's usually what it is. So yeah, that's sort of next steps, I guess, for anybody who's kind of listening to this, heard this, is kind of write that out on paper, and then decide like what your next action needs to be, and just focus on that one next action.
Don't get overwhelmed with so many different choices you have out there. It's usually there's just one thing in front of you, and that one thing's different for every business owner or entrepreneur. But if you go through this process that John has so beautifully outlined, I think you're going to know exactly where you need to go next.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, John, anything else you want to add? Anything that got left out from this action-packed episode?
No, I think we covered it a lot. It's if you guys have any other questions you wanted to hit me with, I'm open to answering those. But yeah.
Thomas, any final words of wisdom before we jump into the product of the week segment?
I don't. I think that was great. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, of course.
That's when you know you've done a good job, John. Everybody is silent.
Great.
All right. Funded Today Nation, it is our favorite time of the episode now. It's the Funded Today Products of the Week segment. And I'm going to bring back one from just a few episodes ago because they are wrapping up their Indiegogo in-demand campaign. And this one is Dale Backus. You may remember him. We even had him on the episode, the Funded Today podcast. Sorry, we even had him on the Funded Today podcast a month or so ago. This is OSnap, the phone grip that doesn't suck. Originally, we raised them $467,000. And on Indiegogo, that number's climbed to $617,169. There is not a lot of time left on this one. But the good news is Dell has been so successful, he's already starting to take orders on his website. We've talked about OSnap a ton. This is the newest competitor to the $168 million PopSocket product. I think it has a lot of potential. PopSocket only raised $18,000 several years ago on Kickstarter. This product's raised over $500,000. So big things coming for Dell and his product OSnap. I think you're going to love it. Check it out. Let us know your thoughts. Thomas, what do you got for us?
My product of the week is Pale Blue batteries, lithium batteries. And again, this was one we had also shared in the past, but sharing again, it's on Indiegogo. It's raised another $100,000. These are high performance, super convenient batteries, but they're also sustainable. They have a little plug and you can recharge your batteries. So like we were just talking about, like Zach mentioned, right? You want to get in with the trend. This year has been the year of green. I imagine we'll continue to see green moving forward, but these are the first of its kind batteries where you can recharge your batteries just like you can any of your other devices, your phone or anything else. It's insane that we literally use our batteries and throw them away. That is such a waste of resources. It pollutes the earth and it's a waste of money too. So check out Pale Blue. That's PALE Blue on Indiegogo.
Now, John, you have been such an amazing guest on this episode. So for your product of the week, I want you to pitch your business. Tell us where people can reach you. Tell us what you do, who you want to help, who your ideal customer is, and maybe some of our listeners will end up being your loyal customers.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So, if you're kind of an e-commerce brand that sells physical products, and you specifically want to increase sales through your own website, right? So direct to consumer, like we talked about earlier, then you probably, it's definitely worth a chat to talk with me. You can go to www.explosivegrowthmarketing.com. You can learn a little bit more about us, see a couple case studies there. Pretty simple website, but there's a few case studies, and then there's a spot where you can book a call with one of my partners, Van, who's a very knowledgeable guy, and he can kind of figure out what your next steps should be, if you're a great fit to work with us, or if there's some work. A lot of times we'll kind of go over this stuff with you. So if you're not sure like what your competitive advantages are, you're not sure what phase you're in, head to the website, book a call with Van, and he'll be able to kind of bang that out with you.
That's awesome. So you're telling me Funded Today listeners can basically get a little deep dive session to see if they're a good fit?
Yeah. That's the idea. Well, because honestly, I need to go over this with people before they become clients. Otherwise, it's not great for me. So yeah.
I love it. Okay. We will include a link to your website and how to reach you in the show notes. You guys can check that out at fundedtoday.com/podcast for this individual episode. Thanks for being on our show again, John. It was wonderful having you. I think Thomas and I got a lot out of this, and I know our listeners are too as well.
Awesome.
So
thanks for having me.
Next time, it's been awesome. Next time, we want to hear from you. We want to know what topic you want to talk about. We don't have one that we're going to give you a little teaser on yet. So let us know what you want to hear about. Otherwise, you're going to get what Thomas and I think you want to hear about. And as always, remember, don't wait until tomorrow. Get funded today.
Funded Today is the worldwide leader in rewards-based crowdfunding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Combined, they have raised over $200 million and counting for thousands of new ideas and inventions worldwide. If you've got an idea for a new product or invention, visit fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.